Hello and welcome to another episode of the Firearms Insider Gun and Gear Review Podcast. This is episode 149. On this show, we showcase gun reviews, gear, and anything else a gun enthusiast may be looking for. We strive to evaluate products from an unbiased and honest perspective. I'm your host, Ryan Cross from the Firearms Radio Network, your source to broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This week, we got Rob, Sean, and Tony in the house. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
Phenomenal.
Sweet. So let's start off with what we all did in guns this week. Starting with, we'll go with Rob. How's it going, guy? Did you do anything? Pull any triggers?
Well, unfortunately, I had planned to do a lot of trigger pulling over the weekend, but that little wannabe hurricane thing that came up the west coast of Florida interrupted my plans. I got some family on the west coast, so I went over there to Saturday and Sunday and part of Monday to help them get their stuff squared away after that hurricane left. Because although it was a tropical storm, they do live close to the coast, and to hear them describe it, basically they're sitting in the second story of their house, and up a river, downriver goes the tide, upriver comes a 10-foot wall of water and just floods out the bottom of their house, coolers everywhere, freezers, just, total chaos, total mess. So I was helping family and helping friends recover from the dig their way out of that hurricane. So unfortunately, I didn't do squat.
But yet you're still here, and we haven't seen TJ for how many weeks?
He's just probably got some disease from playing in that filthy water. And that's one thing a lot of people don't think of, is a standing water probably has, more than likely has sewage and nasty stuff in there, so don't play in storm water, especially hurricane water. But anyways, yeah, going good other than that.
Cool. How about my Jersey boy? What did you do this week, Tony?
This week, had a lot of fun, took a lot of pictures with a lot of different guns that I shot. Did some black powder on Friday, helped get a friend addicted to black powder, posted that on Instagram, posted his first look, and then first shot, and then, of course, the look he did after the first shot, after the white smoke cleared out, and he was staring at his, outlawed Josie Wells era revolver, and he couldn't believe he just pinged bullseye at 25 yards with a 44 caliber bullet. That was awesome. And then he broke out his Tommy gun and his M1911 and some other stuff. And then Sunday I went out with a bunch of other Second Amendment guys from Jersey. They'd actually planned a class on IDPA class without realizing what weekend it was. So of course no one signed up for the class. So they said, screw it, we have the range. Let's have a cookout. So they did the cookout and a shoot at the same time, shot a bunch of cool guns, and I'll be posting photos of those and the experience on my Instagram page. So check out Simon Says Train, or, my regular page, Tony Simon, to see what I did and what I shot.
Sweet. What about you, Sean?
I was not at the event on Sunday because I was at a wedding, which was gorgeous, but I thought it was kind of funny because the event Tony went to was right in my backyard. That's the range I'm a member of, and where I RSO every couple of weeks. So it was just kind of silly that I wasn't there. But the wedding was amazing. The bride was gorgeous, of course. I also picked up my new little concealed carry gun here. It's a Ruger. Let me get that centered. Ruger LC9S, which is a striker fire version. Spent a couple bucks extra for the blue Cryptek just because I think it's funny, and picked up their extended 9-round magazines, which, if you're a big guy with extra large size hands, you wear the big gloves in the store, these help you shoot such a puny little gun. Gives you a little more control. So took that out on Monday, got a little more than 100 rounds through it. I can hit the broadside of a barn, so I'm happy.
Sweet.
Just in case he's attacked by a barn.
Well, I didn't really do anything too exciting to write home about, so moving on from that, we're going to get into the announcements. It's going to be a relatively shorter show because I've got my review this week, the Crimson Trace Laser Guard, and then we're going to be talking about a SIG scope that actually was some listener feedback. They were asking specifically about the scope and what our recommendation would be for which reticle to go for. So we're going to kind of tie the product spotlight and the listener feedback kind of together with that. So we're rolling with the format changes still. I've gotten a lot of emails from people catching up on like the episodes like 146, 47, and 48. So people just kind of catching up and hearing me say, oh, maybe we should do 2 shows. And then they immediately, once they heard that, emailed me and was like, oh, no, you don't need 2 shows. What you're doing is just fine. Don't change anything. It's just one person's feedback. My vote is keep it the way it is because I really enjoy it. So I got a lot of that feedback. So I'm glad that we didn't do anything too drastic to change the format up. All we did was just swap. We're going to talk about reviews first in the show, right after the announcements, and then get into the product spotlight and really focus on that review, put a little bit more time and details into it. And we're going to spend less time reading off of other people's spec sheets and reviews. So hopefully after people catch up on these last episodes, 148 and forward, I get a lot of positive feedback saying, yeah, that this does work out better. Good job. So bandwidth sponsor for this podcast is Patriot Patch Co. Right now we got the patches. We got the mini projectile pizza and the mini bullet patches. They are awesome. They're on my patch wall. I forgot to pull them down before I started the show. They are a lot smaller than the original ones, which were like almost 4 inches in total length. These ones are about 2 inches in total length. So we got the new website. We've got all of our products on there. With the Endless Possibilities t-shirt is kind of something new that snuck up. I did this. We obviously have the Endless Possibilities patch, which is the AR-15 lower. That's one of my favorite patches that we've done. Well, I designed it as a shirt as well and added some schematics from an AR-15 blueprint to the design. And I sent that to Jake a long time ago, and he finally got around to actually getting the shirt made. And it's probably one of my favorite shirts that we have in our whole catalog, just because if you build AR-15s, I mean, these parts you know by the back of your hand, and you kind of like to show off that you're in that exclusive AR-15 builders club. And maybe people can ask you about it, and then you could offer your services to help them build their own AR-15 lower, assemble it from a stripped lower or upper, whichever one they prefer. So Endless Possibilities t-shirt, $25 on the website right now. I am working on some brand new patches in the works for us, Patriot Patch Co. So those will be probably another week or so before we add the pre-orders for those, but they will be pretty awesome. So just hang tight and stay tuned for that. I did launch the Gun Collective website last week. That's what I've been working on for a long time. And there's going to be a retail aspect with some sweet prizes. And we're kind of waiting for John Patton to get the first prize kind of lined up before we go live. So stay tuned. I'll announce it on the show. I'll be plugging it every week just because I've been helping them out with the web design on that. So I want to make sure all my listeners get in on some of that sweet goodness. The other announcement is that if you want to support the podcast, this one or any other of the shows, we now have a listener pledge program. So if you go to firearmsradio.tv and go hit the pledge button, you'll see everyone's podcasts on there. You just click on the album of the podcast that you want to support, and then you can pledge a certain amount of money towards them. So we got different levels with different prizes. So it's a lot like Patreon, but instead of Patreon taking a cut, this is all FRN. So we're going to offer up some Patriot Patch swag for each donation level. So between stickers all the way up to patches, joining the Patch of the Month Club, throwing in some mystery gear, some ammo cans, some t-shirts, all sorts of great stuff. So just depending on how much you're willing to pledge to support is the rewards that you get in return. So you might want to check that out. And the Black Bag Resources, Sean said that he'll have a promo code probably next week. And to make up for the fact that September's already started, you said you were going to extend that probably into August or October as well?
Yeah, we're going to push it into October, and I've got a bunch of new products coming in. September is National Preparedness Month, so we're going to focus on those kinds of things, and we'll come up with a coupon code that ties into all that.
Sweet. So now we're going to get into the main topic. So this week I'm reviewing a laser. Oh, wait. Sorry. Let me say that again. Laser. I got my pinky next to my mouth. Dr. Evil style.
No. You're supposed to do the air quotes. Laser.
Laser? It's been a
the
while,
air
man.
quotes.
All right. Whatever. Well, people can't see that on the podcast, so it's kind of moot. So I have right here the Crimson Trace Laser Guard, and it is a laser that mounts over your trigger guard. This is my SIG P938. It is safe. I do have the hammer back, but I can assure you there's nothing in there. Do the whole song and dance. Yeah, it's empty, blah, blah, blah.
Chamber check.
Chamber
Manual
check.
and visually inspect.
That's right. So the Laser Guard is a unique product that actually lends itself quite well to pocket pistols and smaller subcompacts that do not have some kind of light rail, accessory rail, or Picatinny rail underneath the dust cover or the muzzle that you would mount a light or laser to. So your Glock 26s or your Glock 43s, 42s, Smith & Wesson Shield or Bodyguard, the Ruger LCPs, LC9s, the Cars, the Taurus Judge. I shudder. So anyway, the SIGs, the P938s, and the 238s are included in that. So the way that Crimson Trace figured it out is every handgun has a trigger guard. It's a unique shape, and so they designed a laser housing to snap around the trigger guard, putting the laser diode or the lens right underneath the muzzle, and then locating the activation pad right under the trigger guard on the grip, where you would actuate it with your middle finger in the natural squeezing position that you're going to do anyway. So there you go. It's on. I'm probably going to kill my camera here if I shine it on the lens too much. So it's very simple to use, very intuitive location of the activation pad. You literally take it out of the box, you put the battery in the right half because it's kind of a segmented 2-half housing. So then you snap that right half onto your trigger guard, and then you take the left half, align it, press it together, and then you've got 2 screws in the side that you use the supplied teeny tiny Allen wrench to tighten those screws down. And then at that point, you can zero it, which is a really easy process to do. When I worked behind the gun counter, a lot of times I would do this in the store if they were buying like a Bodyguard or some kind of shield that came with a laser, because sometimes manufacturers will bundle with Crimson Trace and offer it from the factory. A lot of times that's not very well like zeroed in from the factory, or not at all. So all you have to do is just take the little wrench in one hand, your weak hand, hold the gun in your strong hand, aim it at something. Obviously, make sure it's safe. Don't go pointing it at anybody. Nothing you're not willing to destroy. So you just want to look through the sights and point at the wall. If you work at a gun shop, there's probably deer or some kind of critters mounted taxidermy on the wall. You can just aim at one of the spots on those, like the eyeball or something like that. And then what you want to do is take the wrench and put it into one of the 2 adjustment, either the windage or the elevation. And so then you would just, while you maintain your line of sight through the iron sights, you just twist and watch that dot with your other eye move closer to your point of aim. So pretty simple to install and to zero in. I've zeroed it and I've taken it off for a while and then put it back on and then tested that zero. It does return to zero as long as you make sure that you retighten those screws consistently to what you had it at before, because I've done them like loosely and it's been off to the right, and then as I tighten it more and more and more, that dot comes closer to where my front sight is. So in my review, I talk at length about the practicality of the laser, and luckily it's a gun review and we're not here to discuss and debate the practicality of having a laser on your concealed carry piece. For some that have physical disabilities like poor eyesight, where they can't focus on the sights in front of their face, or bad sight at night where they can't see the sights at all, it is detrimental to them to use it, and that's why a lot of times I would recommend it to people that had those kind of needs. If you're a perfectly healthy 20/20 vision young person like me, I mean, the laser doesn't have any benefits to that other than the fact that you got to think if you're in a situation where your life's in danger and your adrenaline's pumping and you need to draw your weapon and use lethal force, but you have a broken arm, a wounded arm, or you're trying to shield somebody or carry something, basically having that laser is kind of an extra little benefit to help you aim without actually using the iron sights. So a lot of people say it's a crutch that, you know, if you have a laser, you're less likely to learn how to use your iron sights correctly. And that can be true if you are a brand new gun owner and you just buy the gun straight from the store with the laser and you like the laser so much because it's cool and high speed and you never learn to use the iron sights. That's not a great idea because batteries die, electronics go bad, zeros can shift if the device is bumped hard enough. So it's a good idea to know how to use your irons as well as the laser, obviously. So prefacing everything with that, we're just going to get right into the actual product itself. So this one actually came with a holster. I like to carry my SIG P938 in a pocket holster because it is definitely pocket sized. It is smaller than the M&P Shield, which I would have a difficult time fitting in my pocket, having it not print. So I usually carry with a DeSantis Nemesis holster. So I'll hold it up to the camera there. That's the Nemesis holster. I really like it. It's got kind of nice bumps on the outside that really stick to your pocket. The holster that Crimson Trace uses is from the Tough products. That Tough is the name of the company. So it doesn't really have that bumpy texture on the outside. It's just kind of a harder, almost like a crackle leather texture, but it does the job. So what's nice is if you want to carry in your side of your pocket, then you can order it with the bundle. It's going to cost a little extra, but it saves you the time having to track down, okay, which holster is going to be large enough to fit my gun with the laser installed. Because obviously, if you try to fit it in a standard holster, even this pocket holster, which has some tolerances in it, it's not going to fit all the way in there. So kind of saves some time, and they provide the right fit for you. So like I said, going through my review here, installation is really easy. You can do it in just a matter of minutes, and you can zero in a matter of minutes as well. Keep in mind that if your gun, because your sight radius uses like a 6 o'clock hold, meaning that if you're shooting at whatever it is, 10 feet or 20 feet, if you need to put the target circle on the very top of your front sight, and that's what we call the 6 o'clock hold, you're going to want to zero your laser to be pointing at where that center of that circle would be instead of right where your sights are. So keep that in mind as well. And there's a lot of myth, and I'm sure Sean and Tony will both have something to say about where to zero this laser, because basically, you know, it's positioned beneath the muzzle, and you need to have the laser pointing upward to match up with your line of sight. So at some point it's going to be zeroed, and then past that, the distance between where your sight line is and where that laser is pointing is going to drastically increase because it's two lines going in two straight directions. So there's a lot of people that say, well, you need to zero it at 21 feet because that's the reported average for self-defense shootings. 21 feet is about 7 yards. It's actually less than that. It's kind of a myth. I don't know if you guys have heard differently, but what I read was that the truth is more like 7 to 10 feet is the average for the distance in a self-defense shooting, which is stupid close. But for some reason, Crimson Trace decides to zero their lasers at the factory at 50 feet, which is beyond both of those two metrics. It seems like a little far for me. I zero mine at 20 feet because then when I get closer to a target, my dot is only an inch low at 10 feet. And then when I back up to about 90 feet, which is about 30 yards, the laser dot's about 5 to 6 inches above where my sights are. So that's where I keep it. That's where I prefer it. But you can zero it to whatever you prefer. If you live in a little studio apartment and nothing is past 10 feet, you might want to have it, zeroed at 10 feet. Do you guys have any quick input on the distance where to zero lasers?
Just wherever you decide to zero it, understand, train with it and understand what that limitation is. And like you mentioned, that it's two lines that intersected at one point, you kind of have to give yourself a little practice and a little leeway to understand where the differences are beyond that one intersecting point. I'm not a big fan of lasers. I find a lot of students get distracted by it, and even though it's zeroed correctly, some of their other fundamentals go wonky, and they start shooting low. Like they stop paying attention to their trigger pull because they're all excited about looking at the laser. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of that in some of the one-on-one training that I do. That somebody brings their own gun, they're a first timer, they've put that laser on, and it's really a distraction. It's a little bit more work to overcome that for the student. But yeah, lasers in general, I'm a big advocate of keeping them as close as possible instead of further out. So to hear the Crimson Trace zeros it at 50 yards, it's not something I was familiar with, and certainly seems way beyond what I would consider reasonable for defensive handgun use, as far as pairing that with a laser. Tony will touch on bad breath distances, I'm sure, because that's something we talk about quite a bit when it comes to defensive handgun use. But yeah, just kind of understand where your laser is, and the other thing to consider is as you get further out, that dot gets bigger. So you kind of have to figure out if you are going to shoot that handgun at 25 yards with that laser, understand how much bigger that dot is at 25 yards compared to 5, 6, 7 feet.
Yep. And also, well, go ahead, Tony. What are you going to add?
Well, it's almost the same thing I add with every piece of equipment. You have to use your equipment. You have to find out your limitation, the equipment's limitation. Way too many people just believe you put something on the gun, you instantaneously know how to use it because you have a receipt for it. You don't. And you also have to get good with it. And yes, there are things that you can do and will do wrong if you don't have proper training in it. And one of the things is paying attention to, again, the laser dot itself and not your trigger manipulation, hand position, or any of the fundamentals that make you hit what you're aiming at. So that's what I say. Get the equipment if you think you can use the equipment. It's all a learning curve. A lot of people have a lot of firearms-related gear that they'd never use after they figure out it was a waste of money and time. So put in the work. There's no freebies in this.
Yep. And also, you mentioned on it before with lasers is that, you might be able to hold your handgun steady and shine that laser beam at 10 feet, 20 feet. But if you think that putting a laser on your pistol is going to instantly make it a carbine and be able to hit targets out to 100 yards, you're sadly mistaken, because you'll notice that, with whichever stance you take shooting that pistol, any kind of movement is exaggerated the farther that laser has to travel before it actually hits and reflects off something. So you might be able to keep that laser trained within a quarter-inch circle at 20 feet, but at 40 feet, that's going to quickly grow to a much larger circle. It might even be off a torso at 100 yards.
I also have a thing that sometimes people say, well, I'll use it to intimidate a bad guy. Put the laser on his chest, the dot on his chest, and he'll stop.
No.
Understand something, and it goes hand in hand with what you just said, Ryan. You don't stand perfectly still. So if you don't have a command voice, command presence, all you're going to do is point a dot to someone, and your hand is going to be shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. So you don't really look like you are in charge of anything. You look like a nervous wreck that's pointing a firearm at someone, and it's really dependent upon them whether they're intimidated by you and listen at all. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of myths surrounding lasers and home protection and other stuff that people just assume. Take a class, learn something. Seriously.
And I'm glad you touched on that because I do mention that in my review is that, I've got some friends in law enforcement and private security. I even have a close friend that was in recovery as far as chasing down fugitives that skip bail. And he had a laser on his Springfield XD. And I always asked him, why do you have that on there? And he believed that when he shined it on somebody, it kind of quickly reinforced that he was in charge of the situation. It kind of it depends on honestly who you're pointing it at, because if they're John Wayne or Clint Eastwood, or if they're a hardened criminal, a little laser pointer is not going to deter them. But he seemed to feel that in certain situations it kind of got their attention better. I'm not entirely sure that's worth even mentioning.
More than likely, what they're going to see is that laser bouncing around on their chest, and they'll be like, "This guy can't shoot for nothing."
Well, I mean, you can't really when someone's pointing a gun at you and then you can see a light underneath their muzzle, your first instinct isn't to look down at your chest and see where they're aiming. It's not like the movies where they shine the laser on the groin or the chest, and it's comical. But the person who's not going to look down and see where that laser is, so it's not really for their benefit.
They're also not going to look down and see where that laser is and then stay in front of the laser.
Right.
You're kind of telegraphing your move at that point, too. So, use it sparingly.
Yeah, exactly.
And as in any defensive situation, don't pull your gun unless you're ready to use your firearm. It's only a deterrent if they're deterred by it. You better be ready to use that deadly weapon you pulled on someone, because they might come from a background and or culture where having a gun pulled on you is not really that unusual.
Right.
Do we want to touch on that video that circulated recently of the instructor checking the laser and shooting himself in the hand?
No,
Yeah, funny.
we don't want to talk about that.
No, we're not going to touch on that? Okay.
All right.
Well, I mean, the laser really reinforces that rule of gun safety: never point the muzzle at anything you're not willing to destroy. And if you're checking to see if the laser's working by putting your hand in front of the muzzle, then you're just asking to get ventilated there.
Oh, it was a lesson to be learned there? I just thought it was really funny.
So just getting back to my review. So this model, you got to find out what model number is appropriate for your model pistol. For the SIG P938 and 928, it's the LG492. So it really works well for the 938 and the 238 because they're basically little mini 1911s. They have ambidextrous thumb safeties. So having any kind of laser mounted to the grip panels would not work very well because they would interfere with the other side's grips or thumb safety. So getting into we've already zeroed it and we're taking it to the range and shooting it. As far as testing its reliability, not only have I read reports of after using plus P ammunition, having a noticeable shift in zero after only 50 rounds. I really wanted to make sure that I took my time and I put this thing through its paces so I can verify that for myself. So I've had this thing for like 3 or 4 months now. So about the 225 or the 250 round mark, I did notice that it started to shift slightly. Only about like an inch off or inch and a quarter. It's very gradual, obviously, because once that lens or with the internal those screws pushing against that diode, once it starts to move after every shot, it moves a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until you readjust it. So it's extremely gradual. So it's always nice to just recheck zero. It's super easy, at home or at the range. But as far as it holding zero and you're expecting it to be absolutely bomb-proof, that's just not true. It's really meant for a little bit of a training aid, a little bit of shooting at the range, but ultimately it's there in case you need it when you have to use your self-defense pistol, which again is there in case you need it. It's not something that you're going to use every day. And Speaking of that, the battery life on these guys, it's only 4 hours for the red. You can get it in a green laser, and that, of course, decreases the battery life to only 2 hours, which is pretty short. So Crimson Trace does have, I'm going to put the gun down. Crimson Trace does have a free battery for life program, so it comes with usually all their products. So all you do is you just enroll in the program, and you just redeem it every year. So you have to contact them because they're not shipping them automatically, because for all they know, they're not going to send you a free battery if you had sold the gun or whatnot. But basically, every year you can contact them and get your free battery replacement. And it does use 2 different kinds of batteries because the length of it. So you can use one 1/3 N lithium battery, or you can use 2 357 silver oxide batteries in conjunction with each other. So on to my major complaints, and then I'll go through the key points. So sometimes the laser guard comes with a master on-off switch. Usually it's right in front of the trigger guard. Let's see right where my finger is right there. It's right in front of the trigger guard. It's usually a very small switch, not very prominent, so you can't hit it accidentally. But it basically allows you to sever the circuit, and then it allows you to shoot with a full purchase on the frame with your middle finger, because that's what actuates it, without draining the battery. For some reason, that's not consistently offered across all the models of the laser guard, because mine doesn't have it. So if I squeeze normally like I do, the laser is going to turn on. If I want to shoot without actuating the laser, I have to loosen the grip of my middle finger, which affects my shooting, and that's something that I have to train and get used to. So that's kind of a bummer. I mean, I dinged some points in my score because it did not have that on there, and I would love to be able to shoot this with a full, normal, unmodified grip that I'm used to shooting without having to drain the battery on that. The other thing is, obviously, by design, it wrapping around the trigger guard, it adds some thickness below the trigger guard and that button. So if you have a super small gun that you can get 3 fingers on, or only 2, you can expect your fingers to slide down the line, so to speak, with the addition of the laser guard, because it adds thickness below the trigger guard. So if you have a pistol that your all 3 fingers barely fit on there, with or without that finger rest on some kind of extended magazine base plate, you have to realize that that's going to take up some extra space. So that's why I've taken it off my pistol, because sometimes I don't want it on there. I want to be able to go to the range and shoot and have, all 3 fingers comfortably on there and not feel like they're crowded at all. So you do have to take that into consideration as well. They do include some little cotton swabs. So they give you 2 of these little guys, because after shooting it, obviously, out of the muzzle, there's going to be carbon and other crud that's going to be floating around in the air and get stuck to the lens, the exterior lens. And so after a while, you might notice that your beam degrades, maybe in shape and in focus. So all you want to do is either take window cleaner or rubbing alcohol and kind of give it a nice little gentle scrub with this Q-tip or swab, and then take the other one and use that as your dryer and just dry the lens. They really urge you not to put anything pointy in there or expose it to any really caustic chemicals, because the polymer housing and the rubber overmold part of the activation pad might get damaged if you use anything more aggressive than, like I said, window cleaner or rubbing alcohol. So that's about it. It comes in a nice little box like this. Like I said, price is going to vary depending on whether you want red or green, or whether you want it with or without an included pocket holster. So on to my key points. The claim to fame is the laser guard is the best in class laser sighting system for compact and subcompact polymer framed pistols. Obviously, polymer framed is a generalization, because the 938 in all its glory is not polymer framed. Thank you very much. The laser guard mounts securely to the trigger guard, enhancing your ability to engage threats quickly and accurately with a small framed concealed carry handgun. So target market, obviously handgun owners and concealed carriers. The features and benefits: the polymer housing with overmold activation pad, that rubber overmold on there, kind of helps it to take the constant pressure of on and off and returning to its original shape. The instinctive location of that pressure pad, so you just hit it with your middle finger when you squeeze the grip. I already mentioned the 2 different battery types, so there's no gunsmith needed. It's easy to install when you're, on your own. The battery life, I'll just restate. For red, it's going to be 4 hours. For green, it's going to be 2 hours, and that's constant on. You got to realize that when you use the laser, usually at home, if you're training, doing dry fire practice, or you're at the range, I mean, you're only having it on for minutes at a time. So Crimson Trace kind of estimates that a whole year will go by before you hit that 4 hour, or if you're using green, 2 hour maximum life. So like I said before, factory sighted at 50 feet for God knows why, and it's user adjustable for windage and elevation. It does have a warranty, so there's a 3-year full warranty on this. The wrench size, I'm not even going to bother. The dot size is approximately at 50 feet, half an inch. So like Sean said before, as the dot goes farther and farther out, it actually gets quite a bit bigger. And the master on-off switch is a feature on some models, but not mine, and that's why I'm not very happy. So aesthetic options are all going to be black. I haven't really seen any of these come in different colors to match your different colored guns. But like I said, that red or green laser diode, and we've mentioned on shows the difference between red and green. It's not just a personal preference. There's a little bit of science behind it. Green is brighter and easier to pick up in the daylight or in bright light. Red obviously lasts a lot longer, doesn't use as much power, and it's kind of easier to see at night. So what others are saying, I did leave that in the review if you want to read. It's an Amazon customer, and he's the one that reported using plus P rounds, he was able to get the 0 to shift after 50 rounds. So if you want to read that little review, I've got that on the Firearms Insider website. The price point is going to be $229 for like a red laser with no holster, all the way up to $329 if you want a holster included and the green laser. So if you need it now, you can get it from the website, you can get it from Brownells, you can get it from Amazon. So I got a couple of links in the review there. So my rating, I actually gave it a 6.5 as okay. Pros, easy to install and 0 in minutes. The activation pad is in a natural position, at least for me, and this semi-auto that I'm shooting here. The fact that you can get a pocket holster bundled with it is kind of a nice addition too. The return to 0 when removing the sight for, let's say you had to change the batteries out, if you tighten the screws exactly the same amount, but still check your 0 just to be sure. Now the cons, it won't fit guns with Hogue grips that wrap around the front strap, obviously, because if there's anything from the grip panels wrapping around the front, it's gonna hinder the activation pad and its placement. So not compatible with Hogue grips. The holster, if you want to put this in a inside the waistband holster, and you're used to using a Kydex hybrid holster or something like that, you're going to need a custom shell to accommodate because it adds to the profile. Now, luckily, like Alien Gear, Stealth Gear USA, Crossbreed holsters, most holster companies that have blue guns and they make holsters for laser and light accessories, the Crimson Trace Laser Guard is pretty popular, and they will have most likely be able to accommodate the mold for that. Also, the con, it reduces the grip area for your fingers, like I talked about before. The 0 shift I noticed after about the 250 round mark, and the master on-off switch, which is not freaking available on mine, which is probably my largest complaint if you haven't already could tell.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, right. So 6.5 as okay. That's pretty much my review. I'm on the fence whether I'm going to keep it or not on my gun. Like I said, I've taken it on and off about 2 different times, both for the review purpose and just functionality purpose. Sometimes I don't want it on there. I want to switch back to my standard holster, or I want to switch back to a holster that I had made or that I ordered and it did not accommodate the laser. The Stealth Gear USA holsters that I'm reviewing, that I reviewed last week, that Inside the Waistband Mini, those are built to accommodate the laser. So one other thing to note is that if you are going to be like me and not make up your mind and take it on off, be really delicate with the screws. They are extremely small, and I bet if you weren't careful and you were sloppy with your wrench, you could strip them and potentially prevent it from working again and getting it tightened up. So it's not really something that you can just bolt on, bolt off if it was something onto like a Picatinny rail, for instance. So you guys have any more thoughts that you want to add?
I don't recall off the top of my head. Do you remember what the warranty is on that?
3 year? You mean
3 year?
the detail of it, or yeah, it's just 3 year.
Hey, I don't remember you mentioning it. Does that have an on-off switch?
You mean a master on-off switch? I'm glad you mentioned that. No, it does not. And
why has it got to be a master?
Yeah, really, that's offensive.
It needs a Massa on-off switch.
Why did you get it with a master on-off switch?
So when you buy the one with the master on-off switch, then?
Because I didn't know that it wasn't offered on all the models. I know working at a store, I've seen them with and without, or with mostly. I was pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised that the one for my SIG did not have one on there, and I can't think of a reason why the design would prohibit not having it on every single one. It's fairly new. It's not like I've been sitting on this for a couple of years. I just bought this beginning of summer, so.
They just decided not to put it on there for whatever reason.
Trace and Trace, if you're listening, we want on-off switches.
Yeah.
Well, that's the weird part is a lot of the lasers do have an on-off switch.
Yeah, I know.
But they're on the bigger guns, though. So.
Yeah, it's just a nice feature to have. I mean, if I didn't have to unmount the whole thing to take the battery out, if I could leave it zeroed and take the battery out, I would just do that. I'd pop the battery out when I practice, or if I don't want to drain the battery, and then pop it back in. But that's a little bit more prohibitive when you have to take out the whole thing and possibly throw off your zero. Anything else before we move on?
I think that's it.
All right. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of something backwards here. So we're going to talk about a scope in the product spotlight, but we're going to read the listener feedback first, because that's where that's kind of where the scope comes into play. The first one that's not related to the scope at all. I just think it was hilarious. This was on iTunes. This was a 5-star review, and it's from RJ Spills, and he says, "Don't get it twisted. These guys are really good at reviewing products with an unbiased opinion. That's pretty rare in the gun industry. I really appreciate the fact that Ryan tries to fully test as much gear for an extended time before sharing his opinion. Good. Keep up the good work." So I just like that "Don't get it twisted" is starting to go viral.
It needs to be a patch.
Yeah. Every time you say it, I'm gonna download some kind of auto tune, so it's gonna have a little bit of harmonics to it.
Oh, great!
So say it as much as possible. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted, okay? Just don't get it twisted.
My God.
Right, so
Rob's gonna be the backup on the "Don't Get It Twisted" gospel album.
Nice.
Oh, I love it. So the feedback that actually inspired looking at the scope, this is from John, and he's from Ponte Vedra, Florida. I hope I pronounced that right. So he said, "Hey guys, there is something I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on, the difference between the MIL and the MOA versions of the Sig Sauer Tango 4 6-24 by 50 millimeter scope. I narrowed down all the scopes I was considering, and this Sig scope is the one I have chosen. But would like to hear y'all's thoughts on which you would prefer choose between MIL and MOA." He said he's gonna put it on his Ruger precision rifle in 308 Winchester, as he bought that rifle for ranges of 250 plus yards. I certainly hope so. It would be a travesty to spend that much on a rifle and only be limited to 100 yards. He said, "Thanks again, guys, and keep up the great work." So which is kind of weird because I actually, before I even got this email, I did a little bit of research into mil dots because I came across an article that kind of spelled it out for the idiots out there, and I find myself in that demographic quite often. And so I posed this question, and Tony had time to do some research on it too. Sean's already a mil dot master, so he already knows what the program is. And Rob's taken a long-range shooting course, and so he's kind of familiar with the concept as well. So I think all four of us might have some interesting thoughts on this. So MOA versus Mills, who wants to take the lead on that, on the main difference between the two?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I look at it as mills are based on 10 or 10s. So it's pretty much like, it kind of like keeping up with the metric system, but a mil dot at 100 yards is a mil dot at 1,000 yards. It's just cut into 10s, and then you get into, of course, the angles of it all. And I just find it really complicated because people really get caught. If you stay with mills, just go with mills. If you stay with MOA, go with MOA, and you'll understand them. When the confusion comes in, it seems to me, is when people try to convert one to the other, or they like have a scope that has mil dots but have turrets that have MOA. I think that's when people get confused and caught up in it.
That
but other than
shatters my brain to even think about that.
Yeah, so they're on the fly trying to do math, and just no, pick one, stay with it, learn it. That's the way I look at it.
It's even easier than that, Tony. If you have an Android phone, get mil dot. If you have an iPhone, get MOA.
What about if you've got an innie belly button or an outie belly button?
Right. If you want to live the tactical lifestyle, get mil dots. If you want to be some shaggy bearded hipster, get MOA.
No, if you want to be a European, get mil dots. If you want to be American, get MOA.
I think we did that backwards.
Yes.
All right. So mils, it's kind of a shortened abbreviation for mil radian. So the unit of measurement is just it's different, but it's the same concept. There's a little bit of advantage, obviously, with the military using mils and all the tactical guys using mils. It's kind of like just a language that if you want to hang in that crowd and walk the walk and talk the talk, you have to understand it and use it. If you're completely new to both, you're kind of open to go either way. It's kind of like choosing if you want key mod or M-lock. There's strengths to both. I'm just kidding. It's M-lock all the way.
No, it's not.
M-lock all the way. So I mean, it's like having a pie and slicing it into different pieces. It's the same amount of pie. It's just with one pie you have more slices than the other, but it's exactly the same circumference all the way around. So a mil radian, 1 mil at 100 yards is 3.6 inches. That's just the unit of measurement, 3.6. So if you want to know what 1 mil is at 1,000 yards, how do you get from 100 to 1,000? You times by 10. 3.6 inches times 10 is 36 inches. So 1 mil is 36 inches or 1 yard at 1,000 yards, which is pretty easy to understand. All the way down to 100 yards, 3.6 inches. Whereas MOA, minute of angle, is 1 inch at 100 yards, 2 inches at 200 yards, 3 at 300 yards, 10 inches at 1,000 yards. So it's just imagine yourself at the very tip of a pizza. It's just the angle of that pizza going all the way out into the distance. The nice thing about mils is that there's actually an easy equation for you to do some rough range estimation. So if you have a target at a distance, an unknown distance, but you know how tall that target is in inches, say it's a 12 by 12 target, or if it's a human-sized torso, you know roughly how many inches that torso is. You can line up the target on the top of your horizontal axis on your mil scope. And if you have a first focal plane, it doesn't matter. But if you have a second focal plane scope, you're going to want to be zoomed in all the way. Basically, how many mils tall that is, there's an equation, and that gives you roughly the distance that target is without using a rangefinder. So for the kind that want to be kind of self-sufficient and not have to carry around all these electronics and rangefinders and things, that's a pretty slick trick to have in kind of the ace in your sleeve, to know exactly how far you're shooting so you can shoot it accurately. Now, as far as the Tango 4, relating it back to the scope, it comes in two reticles, the MRAD and the MOA. MRAD is still MOA, but instead of using mil dots, it uses kind of dashes, but it's still in mil radian increments. It is a first focal plane scope, meaning that no matter what your magnification is, the distance between the subtensions is going to stay true, which is kind of nice. So whether you're zoomed in all the way to 6 or back down to 6 or all the way to 24, if you're using the mil system and your holdovers, they're going to remain consistent and true. They're just going to get larger in your view when you zoom all the way out to 24. So the Tango 4 is a pretty sweet scope, and I thought it'd be great to talk about it on the show to begin with, because it does some stuff that I didn't know that SIG was up to. So, like I said, it's a first focal plane scope. Feature that it's kind of the first I've seen of it is it's got what they call MOTAC, which is a kind of a motion sensor. So it's got an illuminated reticle, which is it automatically turns it on when it senses the scope moving around. And then after it hasn't noticed any kind of movement, after 2 minutes, it turns that illumination off. So it's kind of nice that it's all, gives you that feature without you having to, in the dark or in the low light, toggle with your illumination dials or settings like other scopes. I think
how much movement it takes, because I haven't had a chance to play with this optic, obviously, but I'm curious to see how much movement it takes, because if we're going to talk about a professional application, you might get set up and then sit real still for a real long time and lose that illumination if you wanted it.
Right.
And is it just a finger tap is going to get that enough vibration to turn it back on, or do we have to lose our target entirely to get this thing to light back up?
If you got to shake it like an Etch-a-Sketch, it kind of eliminates the whole point, doesn't it?
You gotta shake it like a Polaroid picture.
There you go. There you go.
Shake it, but don't break it. All right.
We can stop now.
Sorry.
It's a pretty dope scope. Retail goes for
God.
about $1,000.
A pretty dope scope.
You like that?
Well, you got to dope your scope.
No.
You got it.
Yeah, of course. Wow. Horrible. I'm going to write some new listener feedback. Ryan's not allowed to make puns.
Hey, don't get it twisted, y'all.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, definitely. A couple of new.
No, and the price point is right, too, for that piece of glass for that rifle. I'm assuming he's got the ballpark $1,500 rifle, so you want to spend about that much on an optic to match quality. So, $2,500 into getting something on that level isn't totally unreasonable.
No.
Okay, here's where you can go wrong, though. Buy good ammo.
Yeah.
All right? You spent the money on the scope. You spent the money on the rifle. You got the quality for the amount of money spent. You came out ahead. Don't go cheap buying the cheapest ammo you can get, because if you load Tula up in it, it is not going to get MOA.
Yeah. I mean, I stocked up. When I first started getting into shooting 308, and I spent a lot of money to have my 700 kind of tricked out, pre-floater and all that jazz. And I bought just a buttload of PMC bronze 147 grain, and it turns out that doesn't shoot real well.
Ryan was that guy putting 87 grade in his Maserati.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at some point when I was first learning, I mean, my gunsmith would be like, dude, buy better ammo, or you know what, reload your own. And it took a while for it to set in. But yeah, I mean, if you want brass and you don't want to just buy brass, you want to be able to shoot it, size it to your chamber, and then reload it, then that's a good way to go. But like Tony said, don't put crap in there and expect gold to come out the other end.
Yep.
The other thing I don't know if John did, I'm reading his email again.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has experience shooting long distance or precision rifles. If he does, good on him. If he doesn't, because I don't think he does just by the question between MILDOT and MOA, take a class. Take a precision rifle class. That way you don't create bad habits or listen to the guy at the range who may or may not know what he's talking about. Just go ahead, step out there, and take a decent class. If you've been shooting rifles already, great. If you haven't, take a basic rifle class to start learning the fundamentals. Take those steps just to make the amount of money you spent, because you did spend good money, but it doesn't mean you're going to get good lessons. You can't buy fundamentals. You have to develop those. So you just, there again, no shortcuts. Take the steps you need to get to achieve the goals that you want. So learn the fundamentals, take a class, learn how to operate the equipment you have, and you'll have a lot more fun than stumbling along, throwing money out the window and not learning the right thing, and then finding out you have to unlearn bad habits you picked up. I think that would be a wise use of your money and
I'll tell
time.
you what, when I took that rifle class, one of the students brought his Ruger Precision, but I think he had a Vortex scope on there. By the end of the day, they had him ringing 600-yard steel plates just consistently. So the gun will do it. So.
Yeah. Another thing also is that obviously if you don't have, if you're used to spending a lot of money on your equipment, you could even pay for custom turrets on your scope, which makes it
actually,
easy. If you're, what's that?
This one, if you look at it, this one comes with a set of custom turrets. It
For
comes
what?
with a card. You fill the card out, and then you send it back, and they'll send you some custom elevation turrets.
So there you go. If you have a 100, let's see, if you're wanting to shoot in 1,000 yards, 168 will grain, 308 will get there. Just it's going to have a little bit of an arc. You might want to go to 175 grain, like Sierra Match Kings. That's kind of what a lot of people like to use, or switch to Birders because they're a lot longer and they kind of cut the wind a little bit more. But if you have a load that you're just dead nuts accurate and you're kind of married to that load, you don't want to deviate at all because you've just found the sweet spot. Send that information into SIG, get your turrets made, and then that makes it easy. You want to shoot 100 yards, crank the dial to 100 and aim right at it. You don't really have to use any kind of holdover at all at that point. But as far as the reticle goes, it's entirely up to you. If you already know MOA, sometimes that's a lot easier for folks that don't want to have to do a lot of thinking and math at the range. That's at, I'm zeroed at 100 yards and that target's 550 yards away, then you know that you need to move down X many MOA, and you've got your smartphone. It's got your ballistic calculator on there. It tells you with your trajectory how many inches your projectile is dropping at that given velocity and ballistic coefficient, and then it should tell you exactly how many MOA to adjust for, either in your reticle or using your turrets. So, it's kind of dealer's choice. You can do whatever you want. It's just the crowd that you hang out with. If all your friends use mills, probably use mills, because when they're spotting for you, they're gonna say, okay, make a 3 mil correction for wind, or elevation 5 mils, and if you're using an MOA scope and you have that then that's not going to be a real great time.
Yeah, the conversion from mils to MOA is a pain in the butt.
Yeah,
because I can tell you, when I took the rifle class, everybody but a couple people were using mils, and it was a pain to do the conversions back and forth from MOA to mils. But I will say that the instructor I had was a current Army sniper, and he said that Army and most of the militaries are switching over to mils from MOA. So, not that I'm gonna say the military always does the best thing or uses the best equipment, but that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So and also the how much clicks you go on that turret. If you've got a mil scope, chances are it's 1/10 clicks. So if you need to move 2.3 mils, then that's 23 clicks. You just times 2.3 by 10, or just move the decimal point 1 point over, so you just know, okay, that's 23 clicks. So that's easier in that aspect versus if you're using MOA and you know, oh shoot, I'm down this many inches, that's this many MOA. My scope can be either 1/4 MOA per click or 1/2, depending on how much money you spent on it. So that can be a pain in the butt too, because you might have to click a whole lot more than you would with mils, and then also keeping track with that. Luckily, the Tango 4 has lockable turrets, so you can kind of set your zero. And if you want to crank your turrets all the way up to take long pokes at 100 yards, or sorry, 1,000 yards, and then you want to dial back down to your 100-yard zero or your 200-yard zero, it has that zero set for you. So I really like that. I would never buy another scope for a rifle that I intend to shoot past 200 yards with, without getting some kind of zero stop feature. And then obviously the parallax adjustment is a huge benefit if you're shooting past 250 yards, so that you just get rid of the blurriness and that parallax and be able to see your target crisply. So, I mean, he can go either way. Do any of you guys have a definitive answer for whether he should go with mils or MOA?
No.
I think we all kind of lean towards mils from the conversation, but MOA is not necessarily a wrong choice based on that. So, John, great question. Thanks for sending this in. Pick your team, and I think I speak for the group when I say send us pictures of targets. We'd love to follow up with you and see how you're doing. Can we get a golf clap for John?
Yeah, golf clap. Better yet, send me your rifle with the scope on there, and I'll let you know.
No. Hold on. I'm down here in Port St. Lucie. When you get ready to shoot that thing, I'll come on up and we'll go to the range and have some fun.
There you go. Hook up with Rob.
I guess you're technically our East Coast, but more on the southern side correspondent.
I'm the resident Floridian, baby. I'm back home.
I wouldn't have guessed.
The team Gator Chaser.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, have fun with this, man. I mean, just have fun with the entire thing. And it's just an adventure, finding the loads for it, finding the rings that work with what you have, finding the ballistics, all of that. It's just a bunch of fun.
And
have it.
Whatever you do, too, keep in mind what you have for a spotting scope, because if your spotting scope is MOA and you get the mil scope, you're going to have some calculations to do going back and forth.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Oh, it makes me jealous of the time where I had the free time and the free income to go to the range and just spend all day sending lead down range and taking long pokes. Now I'm lucky if I get to shoot 100 yards and then go home and go back to work. Anyway, enough of my sob story. Let's give the mic over to Tony so we can talk about the Second Is for Everyone.
The Second Is for Everyone Diversity Shoot is taking place October 6th at Gun for Hire Range in Woodland Park. If you want to come out and hear from Second Amendment groups in New Jersey, learn how to get involved in the fight yourself, win cool prizes, get free swag, eat good food, meet nice people, and shoot cool guns, well, it takes place at 6 p.m. on October 6th, Gun for Hire Range, Woodland Park. Check it out on diversityshoot.com if you want to see pictures from the last ones. If you want to check out the new Diversity Shoot High Point, you can check it out. It will be there. We also have a Tommy gun showing up at the Diversity Shoot this year. On October. So if you want to get some 45 caliber goodness sent down range with a stick mag, we're going to have that available. Check out, watch what I put up on Simon Says Train. I have different firearms, different vendors, and sponsors. And I put the gear that you can win up on Simon Says Train. You can look at Simon Says Train on Facebook and also check out The Second Is for Everyone on Facebook. That's it. That's what we do.
You can also meet me and take a picture with my mustache.
Yeah, sure. That's a great thing, too. Yeah, Sean's going to be there.
Hey, Tony?
Yes.
Does that Tommy gun have the fun switch, or is it just a...
Oh, stop with your fun switch. This is Jersey. There will be no fun here. Cindy
No
also
more than
has
15 rounds in the magazine. No
15
fun
round
switch.
magazine, 16-inch barrel. No,
Well,
but
if it's owned by the gun shop and they've got a Class 3 license or they're a registered manufacturer, then they can have the fun switch.
He's just a dreamer.
yes, listen, I know you're in Florida and you are living in North Carolina. That kind of freedom does not come up here past the Mason-Dixon. Stop with your silliness. But I tell you, as somebody who was pulling the trigger on that Tommy gun last weekend, it is a bunch of fun and way more accurate than you think it would be, and heavier than you think it will be.
You shoot a Tommy gun for accuracy? I thought you were supposed to shoot him from the hip as fast as you can.
Yeah, okay, man. You keep your derps down in Florida. We're gonna have fun up here in Jersey.
You have to shoot it fast. That way it gets lighter quicker.
Yeah.
When we do it in Pennsylvania is when we're going to get the one with the fun switch and the box mags and the drums and all that stuff. And I want to thank Rob for volunteering to provide all the ammunition for that event.
Sure, I'll bring all the 22 ammo you can use.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Somehow you act as if that's a deterrent. That'll be cool too. Thank you, sir. We're also working at getting a place in Maryland. I spoke to someone over the weekend. We may be going to multiple states with this diversity shoot soon. Check out diversityshoot.com, and I'll be posting the newest adventures. Also, one more thing. We're going to have a trigger job raffle for either 1911 or revolver from Schaefer Precision Gunworks. So that's going to be one of the raffle items. So,
any trigger?
calm down. Did you not hear revolver or 1911? And it's their basic trigger job. So it's a $200 trigger job.
So a Nagant revolver?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll get a Nagant revolver down to a 15-pound trigger pull. You're welcome.
That would be a huge improvement. I appreciate that.
If anybody can work that magic less at Schaefer Precision, certainly can.
Sweet. So one more thing to plug, the Fight Tyranny fundraiser. I forgot to mention it last week on the show, but in response to the unconstitutional gun ban that the Massachusetts Attorney General set forth, the banhammer, the Gun Owners Action League, or GOAL in Massachusetts, is kind of leading the fight, and they're selling shirts to help raise funds for their fight against that legislature. So I got the link in the show notes. It's on booster.com. It's their Fight Tyranny t-shirt. It says Tyranny at its back. It's got the Massachusetts state on there, and on the back it has the Fifth Amendment quoted. So it's a pretty sweet shirt. I think Sean said he already ordered one in.
I did. Put your money where your mouth is. Support the cause.
Yep. So $15. It's a sweet shirt, and you know exactly where those proceeds are going, is to help fight tyrannical gun laws.
And if you're one of those people that live in a free state and can't wait to brag about it online, well, send some money to one of the states that aren't so free. Help them out. Also, I'll be taking funds on diversityshoot.com.
I was waiting for that.
diversityshoot.com/panhandle.
Panhandle. That should be the next promo code. Panhandle.
Mooching
Well,
101.
They started a grassroots effort in California to repeal Gunmageddon.
Yeah.
Yes, saw that.
That will be cool if they can do that.
Well, wrapping up the show, send questions or comments to gungearreview@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe and leave us an iTunes review. Check out all the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network at firearmsradio.tv. Visit the pledge page if you wish to monetarily support those shows so we can keep pumping out free pro-Second Amendment content. And be sure to visit the Firearms Insider for reviews and industry coverage. So I hope everyone has a great week. Shoot if you can. Shoot often. And I will catch you on the next episode.
See you guys next week.
Yep, later.
Hey, Tony, look what I got for you.
I don't even know what that is.